I'm Tamika D. Mallory.
And it's your boy Mysonne, the General.
We are your host of TMI.
Tamika and Mysonne's information, truth, motivation, and inspiration.
New name, new energy, but
same old us. How you doing today, Tamika D. Mallory?
Doing good.
You're doing great.
I am.
You still got this little glam. You still glammed up.
Yeah, I still got the hairstyle, which is a mess a little bit because I slept on it, but whatever. It'll work for today. I still got the glitter.
The glitter. Yes.
The makeup.
Yes, that
this is a shame.
That good old Harlem Gala y'all had. That Links Harlem.
Well, it's
the Harlem
no,
chapter.
It's the Metro Manhattan
chapter
of the Links Incorporated. The
Yeah.
Links is a women's organization. It's a social organization that is very, very focused on service. You have to be invited to become a member, and it would be on the list of the organizations that they call the Black bourgeoisie, because these are very, very successful, powerful women. When it first started, there were a lot of women who were wives of. So the husband had the resources. And not to say that those women weren't also pretty powerful, but it did have an element of women whose husbands were of stature, and it was a place that the wives could get together and do service
and
link up and do service for the community, you know. But over time, obviously, as women have made extreme, incredible strides in our careers, in our professional lives, our personal lives, and all of that, entrepreneurship, it has become a space where a lot of women, they don't even have to be, well, a lot of them are married. Probably the majority are at least in very long-standing relationships, but you don't have to be to join the Links. And again, you do have to be invited, and it's a very rigorous process for how people are selected. I find myself as one who, especially, I've been a Link now for 10 years. And so when I was introduced and invited into Linkdom, I knew I was different from many of the other women. As an activist, organizer, didn't have a lot of resources, just kind of was finding myself 10 years ago. I was 34 years old. I was just getting myself in a really, really comfortable space. And so for them to bring me in, let me know that the vision is to expand beyond just like one type of Black woman. And now I look to the right and the left of me, and there's all types of people, somebody that might have an art studio, somebody who might have an art gallery, so you've got that kind of interesting dynamic. And Metro Manhattan's my chapter's focus is on Harlem. Our services to youth, our national trends, all the things that we do is about, and we have an arts committee as well. Everything that we do is about figuring out how to help people in Harlem, how to support more Harlem initiatives, how to bring our skill set to the people of Harlem. We work with a domestic violence shelter and providing them. In fact, I've been in that shelter many times for, whether it's talking with the women. Now we're in the process of raising donations and money to support the women there. We work with Thurgood Marshall School, working with their young people and some other schools. And, Hazel Dukes, the great Hazel Dukes, is one of the charter members of the chapter. So, of course, her energy is like built in, and a lot of what happens in the chapter and the direction of the chapter is based upon her big service to Harlem for I don't know how many years.
Dukes.
Yeah, so that's what the Links are all about. Or, you hear people online bashing people who are in Black organizations, the Boule and all of that. But in a lot of these groups, you have young people who've been able to get education. I know for a fact that sometimes when it's happened, it literally has happened with myself and another person, Hassani Pratt's from a different chapter. She's in Greater New York. She and I have literally helped to pay for the college education of one of the young people who comes from a struggling beginning and has dealt with some extreme issues and disadvantages, but we helped her to get through Hampton. Whenever she needed something, books not paid for, need more money to close the gap with the rest of the tuition, need pocket change, we helped her. And now, not only did she graduate from Hampton, but she's on her way to law school on a scholarship for her entire time in law school. So this is what the Links is all about. And so when you hear people talking, and maybe you have never encountered someone from these types of organizations, and there's enough critique to go around. Mm-hmm. We should definitely critique all organizations, including Until Freedom should have people to say, well, what about this? You could do more here. You could be deeper on these issues. But overall, the goal of these women, aside from social events, which we have, is really to do service to our community.
Well, I did a service yesterday.
We did. We raised a lot of money.
Beautiful event, and then they party.
Yes,
good food.
We always party.
Shout out
music,
to DJ Kiss. Shout out to DJ Kiss. You know what I'm saying? Everybody was there. It was a beautiful event, man. It's good to see Black people in that element, right? To see it in the professional element, you just watch it goes. You see all type of preachers. You see successful people from all over the world that come. Lady was on there talking about how people flew from all over to come to this thing because this is that thing. You know what I'm saying? So it was a good event, man. The energy was good, and it's always good to see people, thriving in those spaces. So shout out to the Manhattan chapter of the Links.
The Metro Manhattan chapter
of the Links.
And
their good old gala that they did.
Our holiday gala. It was called a Toast to Harlem.
But you know what? The only thing I was wondering is like it was in Cipriani's Wall Street, which is a dope spot. But why is it not in Harlem? Like why, since the Harlem chapter, why you don't do it in Harlem?
Well, if you notice, we have a lot of people, and our assessment every year, which is the dues that you pay for the organization to keep going, requires that every gala, which is every 2 years, each member of the chapter must participate because you got to have some skin in the game in order to stay in this network. And by the way, there are people who've done deals with, just like any other, why I don't know what happens. Our community is the only community that people get mad at you for being in a club where you can go across the table and say, hey, you know what, we're building this business or we're doing this thing. Would you like to come in? Would you like to invest? Can you help me? Can you guide me? Hey, I need a job. Hey, my son can he interview? Can he be your intern for the summer? I don't know why. Can get a recommendation letter. People be what? Because they don't have access all the time, and I get it, but you got to build your own networks. I'm in 50 networks of different types of people. I got people that do all types of things. You got anyway, I was getting ready to start saying illegal stuff. I was going to say you got the sue people, but not for nothing. I don't invest in that because I don't see how.
I love the sue.
I don't see how it comes back. It just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense to me, so I don't do it anymore. I used to, but I don't do it anymore. Anyway, people still have all different types of networks that help them get through life, and you should build them. Don't wait for somebody to invite you to this or that or whatever. You think you got to be all of this to get in the room. I wasn't all of that, and I was invited because of my work and the fact that I grew up in Harlem, and people were like, okay, she's somebody we should have. And I'm sure in those meetings that I'm not a part of, so you don't get to know what happened before. It's like the Zoom chat. When you come into the Zoom chat, the only thing you could see is when you came in in the little chat section. But before that, other people were probably having plenty of conversation, but you don't know until you get added. Yeah. And it's the same thing with this. I don't know what was discussed. I don't know what they said before I got there, but I'm sure that if Hazel has anything to do with it, she's sitting in the room saying, all of us are cute, we look cute, but we need some of these young folks that's out here in the movement doing the work. I can imagine her saying that. Yeah. And so that's how I made it. And so, whatever. But to answer your question about why it's there is because there really are not enough venues that can handle the size,
the capacity,
of our group. We've got over 70 people. Yeah. And so each person has to have between 10 to 12 people at this event. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
The venues just really don't hold. They really don't. And even some of the larger venues we have, they are not up to the aesthetics of what people are trying to do. But nonetheless, we can show you, when you open our books, line item of where the money goes. And the money that we raise goes into Harlem.
Oh, it definitely does. That was a exquisite event, and you can tell that people paid a lot of money for it.
They do. We pay.
Yes.
Shoot, I pay.
So shout out to y'all for that.
Yeah, cool. So let's talk about my thought of the day. I got a call from someone who was really concerned about a case that's happening. Terrible situation, horrible situation. And I was involved with it in the very beginning for a short period of time. I think we may have gone and we visited the family, or we did something. And so I was not involved with it until the last day. And so a person called, and when I say the last day, that's usually something happens in court, or, you have some developments, and then that's what I mean by that. Because when we get involved, we stay all the way. But in this situation, and in a few other situations, people will see us and then you don't. And so the person that wrote me said, I thought that you were on this, like, what happened? They weren't upset or anything. They just was like, what happened? Like, where did you go? Curious about it. And it made me sit and think that I can't explain to that person the details, because that's just not what we do, right? We don't go out and tell people why or what's going on behind the scenes in cases. I was getting all of this flack. I think you remember, this is a separate issue, about Shanquella Robinson, and her father had been making statements about, how we got involved. And then all these bloggers picked it up, and they were talking about us as if, or me especially, as if I was somehow encouraging Shanquella's her mother and her sister to do something without the father. And I've never said a thing. All I have really pretty much ever said was like, y'all believe what y'all want to believe. But I know the facts of what's going on behind the scenes. But we don't go out and say, oh, let me tell you, this happened, that happened, or whatever. All we can do is say, I've had many conversations. Everybody involved knows exactly what's going on, and you kind of leave it at that, because you're trying to make sure the integrity of what you're doing, that you don't get a reputation for running around spreading gossip and stuff about people's families. It's nasty. It's just not what we're going to do. So in this particular situation, they're asking, why am I not involved in this thing? And so I was sitting, and my thought of the day, of what I came here to say, is that oftentimes we don't talk about any of the details of what's happening behind the scenes in cases, but there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes in cases. And I will often pull back from a situation where I see that there is any level of toxicity with other people getting involved. I can deal with a family that might have struggles because you have unfortunate situations where someone may be killed or harmed, and then you find out there's a parent who's incarcerated, or a parent who is on drugs, or another, or a parent who's not been around, but now that there is a case, they want to be in the camera, or they think they're supposed to get some money. We've dealt with all of that, and I know how to navigate those conversations, working closely with the lawyers, the families, trying to give the best advice. And also making sure to stay close to who invited us to be a part of helping them to fight for their loved one. But if I see that other individuals are coming into the situation who are toxic, especially in New York where we live, I pull back, mind my business, and support from the sidelines. And the reason why I do that is, one, because I have no intention to fight other people while working on a situation that requires really all of our full attention and our unity to help this family or these individuals fight for their community or their loved one. I have no intention of being in a knockdown drag out. I've done that already. I done had squabbles here and there with people, and I'm just not doing it, especially as I've gotten older. I realize I'm not the only advocate. I realize that I'm not the only voice. I realize that there are many people that have different strategies, and Lord knows, I pray that whatever their strategy is works. But for me, especially in New York City where I live, I understand that my family members and friends, they don't really do politically correct. So all of this, like where people think they can be super aggressive with you and they outside yelling and talking about, oh, anybody that's here, this is my shit. You ain't tough enough. You ain't this, and doing all that. I'm out. Because I'm not getting ready to have the men in my family getting into it with you. Because it's going to turn into some total street shit. Like, ain't nobody trying to hear me telling them, well, you out here. People be threatening to slap people, like the things that I see. And we're even on video getting into it with a group of weird ass people out in Staten Island where they were videotaping my license plate. From when we pulled up, they were videotaping my license plate and the type of car that I have. And we asked them what's up, and the thing turned into a whole thing. And the next thing you know, we back and forth, and people is saying what is going to happen. And they clipped me saying something about slapping the shit out of someone. And then there we go. And so, but I don't give a damn. I'm just saying. Yeah. I don't want to be involved in none of that. So therefore, if I see toxic organizations or people I don't work well with, or people, and again, if you call me, if a family calls me and say, hey, do you have this person's number, or can you support me in this way? No problem. But I am not going to be showing up every day in an environment where somebody that might make me have to hurt them, or somebody in my family have to hurt them.
Yeah, it's growth, and it's just understanding. A lot of people are like, oh, why you ain't on this and why you ain't on that? And a lot of times it's not the situation. It's not a situation that I feel like we should be attached to. Like you said, it's toxic. A lot of times, these families are forced into situations that they didn't call for, right? And then with media attention, it divides the family, right? So when you see that the family is divided and the father don't want this and the father don't want, the mother ain't this, and the mother and the father's, I don't want to be involved in it, right? Because it turns into smear campaigns, it turns into discrediting you and this and that, and a lot of times, we've experienced it firsthand in situations that we never had anything to do with, where people just throw your name out because you happen to be the most notable person
in the situation.
Yeah. So, and they can get some, views, and they can get some attention, and the news is going to print soon as they try to discredit you. So these are things that come along with the territory and actually really being on the front line of doing this work. And we've learned how to navigate. We've learned how to say, oh, this situation right here, we hope you get the best, that you can, but, it's just not something that we want to be involved with. And we've learned how to do that. So,
yeah, it's not an easy decision to make, because if we could be involved in everything, we would. Yeah. But it's the best situation for the family also, because, you don't even want to explain to them like, oh, that's messy. This person, they can't be trusted, or they did this thing, or they da-da-da-da-da. A lot of times I get calls. That's what they do. Yep. And
as soon as you get called, they go, somebody's going to say, oh, this person ain't this, and this person ain't that.
Yep.
And then the family be like, well, that's not what I seen. These were the first people that came to help me. Before anybody was here, they actually was the people, but they'll try to do anything. They only came for they actually didn't come for that. They actually was the people that brought the news here, because, we reached out to them and nobody was paying attention. But they don't say those things. Most people don't know those things, only the family. And then they won't highlight that. They won't highlight the family members saying that. They just want to highlight the people that's talking negative about you. So this, in all of these situations, we know what comes with this. You've been doing this way before me, but I know in the last decade that I've been doing it, I've learned and said, oh, that's what happened. Oh, that's how they do. Damn, I didn't think that. I'm thinking you fighting for people, it should be simple. We just out here, we want to make sure, It's so much politics.
It gets to be very complicated.
It gets to get very complicated.
So I try, and not so much that I'm minding my business. If you call on me, I'm here, and I always make it clear I'm here. But I also don't badmouth other people like, oh, but I can't be around because such and such. I don't do that. They do that to me, but I don't do all of that. I just find a way to, ease myself on back. Let y'all go ahead, get in front of the camera, do your thing. I don't need it. We create our own media every week on this show and other things that we do. Our social media following is pretty strong. People are really with us. We create our own media. I don't need it. It would be nice if the mainstream media paid more attention to what we do and promote us. But at the end of the day, if they don't, that's okay. If you want to find us, we telling you the story of what we're doing. I'm not running to stand up and be in the face of the camera and then having to go back and people threatening and talking crazy because they really not going to do any of the things that they're saying. But the mere fact that they're even trying to, and it's not really threatening us. It's just their body language and all of this ignorance and just, like I said, toxicity. I'm not going to do it. And I think also as it relates to you and Angelo, I'm also very mindful because I know as soon as something happens with me, y'all are going to be like, what's going on? And now nobody's backing down and everybody. So you know what? I'm out. Y'all got it.
Yeah, sometimes
y'all call me if y'all need me.
You got to be like, y'all got it. You right.
You got it. You got it. God bless.
God bless you.
Anyway, what's up? Next is going to be our music segment.
I got a song for my music segment that's a young guy that I love, man. And he sent me this song today, and it's called Uncle Tom, right? And he did a song. You got to follow him. His Instagram is at Tef Same Gang, TEFSAMEGANG on Instagram.
At Tef
TEF at Tef TEF Same SAME Gang GANG. And it's called it's called Uncle Tom, and I love the song. He made a little parody with certain Instagram people that pretty much fit, what he's talking about. And he's just talking about, black people who have been labeled Uncle Toms, who've done the things to, promote narratives that disrespect us, that amplify, the most negative things about us. And he has some different things from the Boondocks, Uncle Ruckus, and it's certain thing. And it's but he's actually going to do a real video. So he sent it to me and was like, yo, I want you to put up for the real video when he does it. So I might pull up for the real video because this is like a little spoof video that he did right here. But shout out to Tef. He's a dope artist. He got a song that I posted before called Lil Sis, where he's talking to a young girl that he's watching grow up and go through certain things, and he's just trying to put her on to things and educate her and try to save her. So that's when I first got introduced to him. But he's a real dope artist, really introspective, lyrical, so shout out to him. And if you want to, go follow him at Tef Same Gang on Instagram. He's a dope artist, and listen to the song Uncle Tom.
Cool. Uncle Tom, I'm gonna check it out. That sounds like something I need in my blood right now. Yeah. There's so many. Yeah. So let's get into our guest who's coming in to be with us today. He was out shaking a tail feather with us at the gala, and then he disappeared. But we'll have
Lee be moving, man. Lee be moving and shaking.
Attorney Lee Merritt coming right up.
Yes.
The big homie is in town.
Hey.
Attorney Lee Merritt. All of you who are watching, you know Lee, so we don't have to do too much to explain who he is. But if you are not aware, Lee Merritt is a civil rights attorney who has worked on some of the biggest cases, some of the most egregious cases in our time. How old are you, Lee? Now you're
41.
And how long have you been a lawyer?
About a decade now.
Yeah, so for the last 10 years, he's been on the real egregious Who Shot John cases that are really serious. I mean, of course, one of the cases that comes to mind is a Tatiana Jefferson. For those of you who remember, that young sister was shot through her window while playing video games with her nephew in her home. And that's just one case, but that's something that I think Tatiana, we kind of like always revisit that. Whenever women are killed, we are always very sensitive to how it really goes like unnoticed,
undiscussed.
Really.
Aaron Dean went to prison.
That's true.
For manslaughter instead of murder, which we can talk about with the Neely verdict today. But manslaughter instead of murder. And, some of the cases that we were involved in Texas, we get those out. We've seen some of those outcomes. Botham Judge, one of them where Amber Geiger went to prison.
Yeah.
She said she walked in the wrong apartment.
Right. So that's Botham John.
That's Botham John. My son was just talking about Jordan Edwards. My son just turned 15, and Jordan Edwards was 15 when he was killed.
Right. That's one of your early cases.
And Roy Oliver went to prison for that, for murder one.
So you got some wins.
Yeah.
But they're still not like...
They hurt, though.
It's still not... I don't know what it is about it. It's like when we get a officer arrested, or they go to jail, or we get a judgment... For some reason, it just feels like if it can continues to happen, we're still not winning. Like we just not,
exactly.
It's crazy. But then you also have another client that we love, and I don't care who doesn't like it. We love the brother from the what do they call him? The folding chair. At the Alabama brawl.
Chairman.
What's it called? What's that area called again?
Montgomery Brawl.
The Montgomery Brawl, right.
Yeah, the riverfront.
That's
Montgomery
right. He was
Brawl.
a protector of other black folks.
He was doing his job after a group of white racists began to assail black folks at the Montgomery Pier. What was it? What's the day? August 5th now?
It's August 5th.
It's a black holiday now.
That's right. That's right.
We celebrated the first year. Brother Ray actually went back to Vegas, and he caught Eddie Griffin in show. And Eddie Griffin does some comedy. I was in Vegas at the NBA, and
which is the
National Bar Association conference. I'm sorry. Yeah. And Eddie Griffin did some jokes about the Montgomery Brawlers, about Ray in particular, the chairman. And so we sent him
the chairman.
And so we sent the chairman there, and Griffin actually brought him on stage. Some of the guy in the crowd was like, no, because he was making the jokes, and he was like, no, it's him right here.
Man, so that's cool.
So that's how we celebrated the.
But they were talking about charging him.
Yeah. He faced some charges. Him and some other folks there faced some charges, and I want to make sure that I'm saying the right thing. The charges were resolved.
Resolved.
The charges were resolved. I am not a criminal defense attorney. I do not practice criminal defense law or any form of law in the state of Montgomery, Alabama. In the state of Alabama, I'm a federal attorney. I represent Steve Perkins there in Decatur, Alabama. We can talk about that.
Okay.
I have to say all these legalese because I've been sued many times.
Resolved, which means you are giving the news, not that you're reporting the news.
So Lee, now you spoke about the Daniel Penny case and the verdict. We just heard today that he was found not guilty of manslaughter.
Yeah.
Not manslaughter, in
criminal
negligent homicide.
But that was still a charge?
Yes, they took the manslaughter off, and then they left him with criminal negligent homicide.
For what?
For taking the life of Jordan Neely.
You're right. So he choked Jordan Neely to death, like a chokehold, pretty much, on the train in New York City.
Yeah. And so this wasn't a causation case. We know what caused Jordan Neely to die. It was this gentleman's name.
Daniel Penny.
It was Daniel Penny putting him in this chokehold. His defense was justification. Of course, this is what we see with cops' use of force all the time. And so the whole trial came down to what the jury would consider justifiable in protecting either himself from the threat that Jordan represented, or protecting others from the threat that he represented. Jordan said, allegedly, according to witnesses, he said that he wanted to kill somebody that day. He was willing to kill somebody. Didn't touch anybody and raise his voice, but that under the law, would have given most third parties the right to intervene. Hey, I'm not going to allow you to kill somebody. I'll restrain you. He restrained them about the neck. I restrain people. I know how to restrain people. If you restrain them about the neck, that means I'm trying to cut off their wind. I'm trying to hurt them. That's my intent. I can restrain you in another way, especially somebody built the way Jordan Neely was built. I say all that to say I thought he would get criminal negligent homicide. I thought the judge dismissing manslaughter because they were deadlocked on it, was an issue. I think that's a charge the prosecutor can and should bring back. Because the judge can't simply dismiss of it because the jury's deadlocked on it. That means a group of jurors considered the evidence. The ones we just discussed, it said a group of them at least said he's guilty of this. It lines up. And just because they're deadlocked on it, that means that should give the prosecutor a chance to represent the case.
So So there's still hope.
Yeah.
So the prosecutor, so Alvin Bragg's office, who is the prosecutor in New York, for those listening, can go back. So you don't have to appeal anything. I mean, there's no appeal on the other side.
And of course, we have to think of all of. I keep forgetting the assailant's name.
Daniel Penny.
Daniel Penny. We have to think of all of Daniel Penny's constitutional rights. Of course, he has the constitutional right from double jeopardy. You can't bring the same charges against Mr. Penny. But that charge was brought. It was not properly dismissed of. It was not finally dismissed of. They were locked on it. I'm not sure what the judge did in dismissing it. I've never seen a bifurcated dismissal. When I say a bifurcated dismissal, I'm saying he dismissed one part of the charges and brought in a charge that up until that point, no one was even discussing criminal negligent homicide. As I was looking into the case and trying to figure out what charges were read to the jury, that wasn't even, I think it was one of the lesser included. But all that to say, I believe that the other manslaughter charge should be refiled.
Wow. Well, you heard it here. And I guess their attorneys, again, in making sure that we, what do you call it, say all the things, that you are not the attorney, but because you do these things all the time, I just thought it was a good idea for us to just hear because it just makes no sense to us, period. Like, seems to be clear cut. But I think also having the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, speak on this case just days before the jury went out, or maybe when the jury was being sent to deliberate. And he said, I think that the jury should really look at this, and hopefully they look at the evidence closely because people were afraid, and whatever other things he went on to say, which was basically making an excuse for what Daniel Penny did. And I think once you have a mayor say something like that, knowing that it has the ability to, what do y'all call it? Prejudice the jury. The jury. And people say, well, the jury's not supposed to be listening to this and that. The jury's listening to everything because they, you tell your family members, don't say nothing, but I'm on this case, but don't say anything. And every time you get home, what do? Say something.
Call you right away. Oh, my cousin on that trial. And they chastised all of the black leaders who went down, and we were all there for this. They went down to Minneapolis for the George Floyd verdict. And they didn't say anything as strongly as the mayor said in support of a conviction or an acquittal. But they did say, I remember Congresswoman Barbara Ward, I believe, said some things that people consider provocative, like this jury better get it right or something like that. Right. And they said, oh, my God, that's the worst thing ever. There's going to be a mistrial. But you have the mayor of this city make such strong statements in support of this killer. Is wild to me.
Wow.
It's pretty much... I woke up today and I posted on my page and I was just like, although I'm not surprised, it doesn't take away the pain. Like every time we see a Black life lost and you basically tell us that, nobody's responsible for just taking this man's life. Obviously he was dealing with mental health issues. It's documented. People are saying, that he's never harmed anyone.
Well, no, he has.
Well,
he has.
He had harmed someone on the train?
I can't say that he has, because I don't know how these things played out, because I never did a whole bunch of research to follow it down. But I do know that there have been accusations, and I think in one of them it has to do with him hitting a woman. So I just want to, because he has had some incident at some point, and I believe his family denies that most of this stuff is true, but nonetheless he was troubled. He was absolutely troubled.
He had some run-ins with law enforcement. He was a very well-known street performer.
Right.
If you were in the area during that period of time that he was performing, which is almost the span of a decade, probably the span of my career.
Right.
From being a young man to an older man. And yeah, his mental health began to deteriorate like a lot of black men in that state, living, on the streets near poverty. And we don't have any mechanisms for helping our mental health community, people in mental health crisis. People in mental health crisis are 16 times more likely to be killed by the police than the average citizen. And I don't appreciate, how our courts have responded to victims who are in crisis, particularly when it comes to, and in this case, I think Penny takes the place of law enforcement, but particularly when it comes to law enforcement. Penny was treated in this case, Penny in this case was treated like a white man. The problem is law enforcement is always treated like a white man, and we get a completely different version.
If people gave him money to support him. It's interesting because I've not that I want to see this, but I've not heard of a white man who's in crisis on a train. Because by the way, everybody is there. I don't know if I see Asians as often as white and black folks and Latinos on the train who are, homeless and I want to say acting out, right? I know they probably are there, but obviously they're a small part of the population, so I don't really see them. But white folks, black folks, and Latino people, all the time you see them going through different things. Some of them nice, some of them quiet, some of them not, some of them wild, some of them scary. You see this all the time. So you can't tell me that there are not white people on the train who do crazy stuff. You can't tell me that. But I've never, ever, ever, ever heard of a black man or a brown man choking a white person to death on the train. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, and especially I never heard of them not being, found guilty of doing it.
Right.
If they did it. So it's just,
they
go into jail for it. So, it's very unfortunate, like I was saying. And, no matter how many times it happens, it just doesn't feel good, and it's just a real harsh feeling.
Yeah, it is.
I just want to know, this case I've seen that you're working on in Vegas.
Yeah.
Explain to us what happened in that situation.
Brandon Durham.
Brandon Durham.
Just a few weeks ago, I can't recall the date off the top of my head, but just a few weeks ago, Brandon Durham called the police to his home because he had an intruder, someone who he said was breaking into his home, was threatening to shoot up his home. When the police came, they saw glass, they saw damage done to the outside of the home. They rush into the home. There's about 3 officers there. The lead officer is an officer named Alexander Bookman. He hears screams in the homes. They're begging for help. It's the victim, Brandon Durham, begging for help. When they find him, he's in the hallway in his underwear. He's holding back the assailant who has a knife, and he has his arm pinned up against the wall. I think it took about 1.9 seconds between the officer coming to through the door and finding him in the hallway and shooting Brandon almost about from 3 feet away, shooting him to the ground and then closing the gap, walking that 3 distance and shooting him 5 more times, killing Brandon.
And in the police,
wow.
when Brandon called the police, and by the way, it's important to mention that his daughter, who's 15, was there in the house as well. So he was not just protecting himself, he was protecting his child from an intruder. When he called the police, it's my understanding that he told them the person had on a red cap or a red something, right? So the officer who's now getting the report and is approaching this home, even if you don't know, because my mother always says, if 2 people are arguing, nobody know who's the fool. You think you're in the right, but you might look just as crazy as the other individual. So let's just go by that 2 people are fighting. You don't really know which person is the assailant.
Right.
But the person who was mentioned in the audio had on red.
Yeah.
And from the looks of the sketches that I saw, this woman who was the intruder had a lot of red on.
Yeah.
So what is their excuse for why they shot him and not her?
Well, it actually gets worse than that. And, there's 2 excuses that I thought they could come up with. One was I accidentally shot the wrong person. I missed. I was going for the right person. The thing that doesn't make sense, if that was the case, is why did you close the gap and then shoot him 5 more times?
Wow.
And so that
can't work.
That one doesn't work. The real issue, this is something that just came out in the media recently, in the last couple of days, is there's now an audio recording, a service call to the same address the previous day. Officer Alexander Bookman responded to the call. Officer Alexander Bookman knew exactly what Brandon Durham looked like, and he knew exactly what the woman looked like.
Well, why? Oh, so she had been there.
She had been there before.
Well, what was her problem? She's obsessed with them for some reason?
She was an invited guest in the previous day and would refuse to leave. So this was
okay.
a quarrel of some sort. And the next day she came with a vengeance. So, but
that's crazy.
But she had been trespassed by Officer Bookman, told not to come back to the property. And so he had every opportunity to know who was the victim and who was the assailant. And there was never any indication that Brandon was the one who was directing violence towards anyone.
So you telling... you go ahead, because I can't.
That's just crazy to me. Yeah. So they knew who this person was.
He.
The officer actually
Alexander Bookman, who should be charged with a crime here, and I'm not sure what level of murder, manslaughter, or that he's responsible for, but he should be arrested immediately.
So he's never been arrested.
Question it. And we still don't know why he did what. That's why you say, well, what excuses they're giving? Not much.
So his life was taken, shot the man 6 times, and nobody's been arrested. Nobody's been charged.
No arrest.
While he was on the ground, he was shot 5 times.
Shot 5 more times.
Point blank.
And you see it on the video, right?
I didn't watch the video.
So in a lot of cases, we don't get these videos because there's various ways of keeping them from the family as well as for the public. Here we know exactly what happened. We know who did it. We know what information he had when he did it. There's no reason. And I sat down with the prosecutor for the Metro Nevada area. I believe it's Clark County. While I was there a few weeks ago. And he explained to us the process that, of course, is under investigation. The Nevada Metro Police Department investigates themselves. There's no third party. There's no federal overview. There's no sheriff's department that comes in to determine whether their use of force is correct. The general counsel for the Nevada PD has already put out a statement that says there was no criminal intent on the part of Bookman. He just made a mistake. There was no criminal intent. Criminal intent is not even the element of any crime.
Right. It's like it happened though. I didn't intend
that's just some shit that
to
you just
kill
saying.
you, but I started beating you up.
Criminal intent when the crime is made. You know the crime happened. Like,
but that would be based upon the level of the charge. If criminal intent would be like murder versus manslaughter.
And this is before his investigation even began. I was there the first couple of days after the murder, so. His statement initially as he started his investigation was there was no criminal intent. In other words, I'm not investigating this as a crime. They're investigating it as an internal affairs situation to see if he followed the policy, right? And the policy is, rapidly evolving for police in terms of use of force. When I say rapidly evolving, there is no standard. They get to do almost what they want under the new culture that's sweeping the nation, particularly in areas like Nevada. I don't see them charging this officer.
Yeah, I read somewhere that, and I don't want to misstate the numbers, but there have been, more than 10 of these types of shootings or police-involved shootings of black folks in like a short period of time.
In this region?
Yeah.
13
is the number. 8 fatal. See, that's why he's attorney Lee Merritt. He's like, I know the numbers. So 13.
They're out of control.
Do you have other cases?
And there's countries close to there in Reno that we're investigating now, but there's entire countries with hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people that don't
have one.
Killing 13. Japan doesn't kill 13 people a year. They have millions of people, highest concentrations of poverty in the world, the same drug problems, same gang problems we do. They don't have this history of violence and black lives.
So can you, and we got to make sure to mention Minister Stretch, who is one of our Until Freedom organizers.
Yeah, shout out to Minister Stretch, my brother.
In Vegas. And he has been saying, I've been trying to tell people that this is happening, and folks are not really interested. They're not moving on it. And now I know that he's, obviously very supportive here of Brandon Durham in this case and his family. But I want you to just talk about with Trump becoming president again, what do you think will be the difference? You clearly you worked, you were an attorney when he was president before, so you know what the Department of Justice was doing.
Yeah.
You know what has happened during the Biden administration, where we've had this powerful sister, Kristen Clark, as the head of the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ, and what she has been doing. What do you think it will look like now?
Yeah, there's an article out in the Huffington Post written by, who's the famous coach of the Lakers, Coach Kobe?
Oh,
Phil
you talking about
Jackson.
Phil Jackson?
Yeah, the author's name is Phil Jackson. That's how I remember his name.
Ah.
And he wrote about the DOJ under Biden and the strides we've been able to make. And we've seen more prosecutions under the Biden DOJ. It was always a threat that we could bring that we didn't have in the earlier parts of this fight. When I said I've been doing this a decade, the previous decade, we didn't have a federal government we could rely on. Even under the Obama administration, we didn't have a federal government we could rely on to say, if you all don't do right here, there are going to be federal eyes on this. Like we have in Decatur right now, like we've had under Sister Kristen Clark, who is a civil rights lawyer herself, a leader in our community, and has been doing, tremendous work on the DOJ. That's over. The DOJ is going to be reversed now into almost the opposite of the work that she's been up to. And in part of that, what Trump has been describing is he wants to offer police even more immunity. We've been trying to find ways to overcome the qualified immunity that
Right.
we enjoy. The qualified immunity that I think is a relic of the 70s. It was a judicially created doctrine that says officers should be free, and municipalities should be free from even prosecution of cases, except for when they're blatant, they violate some clear lying law, something that's blatantly obvious. It doesn't matter that they violated the law; they had to know they were doing it in some clear lying way, and that has caused, a great multitude of cases to be dismissed before they even get to court. Under the new administrations, they're talking about going even harder with that. What I'm particularly concerned, what I see happening already, is that conservative governors are lining up with this ideology of almost complete immunity for law enforcement officers. So we see even cops who have been convicted, like Eric DeVolk in Kansas, Missouri. There was another conviction of a police officer in Texas. Governor Kehoe has promised, and that's Mike Kehoe in Missouri, has promised to pardon Eric DeVolk for the murder of Cameron Lamb. The governor of Texas has already begun pardoning officers who've used brutal or deadly force and been convicted by juries. And so, yeah, I think we're gonna see a new wave. We've been promised a new wave of law and order, and we've seen this kind of mantra before, an increased in militancy.
Can I ask you a quick question? What do you think happens to I forget the officer's name who was just convicted for Breonna Taylor, whatever his name is. Can't think of it at this moment, but it doesn't matter. His name, he shall remain faceless.
Yeah.
But anyway, do you think because this is the feds that now Trump can come in and pardon that officer?
I think Trump has the authority to come in and pardon that officer. I think there are a lot of convictions or successes that we've had that are under question. Jackie Johnson goes to trial on February 21st. That's the prosecutor who was responsible for covering up Ahmaud Arbery's murder. I don't know how far that goes under the new Trump administration.
So you almost need these things to happen in the state.
Yeah.
Because if they happen on the federal level, so you got to know how to do the 3-card Molly, right? Because you got to know where to put your pressure. During the Biden administration, we had to work the resources of the Department of Justice because in the states, for the most part, you're not going to get in most of the states, but some you can. But now we've got to go back to the state pressure because you're not going to have a Department of Justice, and so you're going to need to make sure that your states is locked in and that we deal with it before it even has to go to the federal level. If an officer violates, I guess, I don't know, but it's civil rights. Is that something that even matters in the state? The civil rights violation?
Yeah, there's civil rights protections in the states, but because your civil rights are protected by the federal Constitution, you can also bring them in federal court. So they should be protected on both levels. But you're right, when the feds aren't available, one of the conservative mantras during this period is state rights. They want to give power back to the states. Unfortunately, in the court, that generally means the feds can't have this review of some of the racist actions that the judiciary actually takes, either white jurors, all white juries, or a very conservative bench. But there are ways to overcome that on the state level. I think that's the new strategy under this administration.
It's gonna be a rough one, man.
Yeah.
We got to buckle up, basically.
Yeah,
so, any other cases or things you want to discuss? Because we know you got to run.
Yeah.
And we love the fact that you came, my brother. It's always good to be with you. This is one of the guys that's been on the front line with us. Like when we say that, when I talk about individuals and people that I know fight for our people, you're one of the first names that always come to mind. You know, you was out there with us, with Breonna Taylor on the front lines, making sure that we were safe, and you had skin in the game.
That's right.
So I love you really for that. But just let us know anything else you want to know before you gotta go.
I just shouted a couple of names. We just recognized 5 years since the murder of Cameron Lamb. The officer who murdered Cameron Lamb in Kansas City 5 years ago, his name is Eric DeVokenair. He's in prison today. It was a great success for us in 2021. That is under threat of being overturned. So anybody with a voice in Missouri, everyone should be speaking out to Governor Mike Kehoe, telling him not to pardon Eric DeVokenair. And we're still looking for justice for Steve Perkins in Decatur. It's pretty soon we have Andrew Lester's trial coming up. A lot of people don't know Andrew Lester's name, but Ralph Yarl was a 16-year-old in Missouri who rang the wrong doorbell. He has been saying that he wasn't competent to stand trial, and a judge a couple of weeks ago just determined that he was competent to stand trial. He will stand trial in February for shooting Ralph Yarl. I want to see him go to prison. So those are the things I'm focusing on right now, and continue to help work with you, good people to do the work.
That's it. Thank you. You are an honorary Until Freedom leader. We appreciate you for coming by, Attorney Lee Merritt. We had a good time last night at a gala, the Metro Manhattan Gala, which is my Links chapter. And then all of a sudden, Lee disappeared.
That's what brought me
But
to
that's
New
all
York.
right, Lee. Nah, but that's okay. Go home, get on the phone, talk to your family. That's what you do.
I love being in Harlem. It was a night to honor Harlem.
Yes,
and I had a chance to stay at the Renaissance Harlem Hotel as a big history buff, as a Morehouse history major. I just love being in that community. And it's a good time too.
Oh, it's a good time. My chapter's gala is absolutely the most fabulous of the entire linked them, right? And there's others. There's others that have very fabulous occasions. But Metro Manhattan, we do it big. We do it big.
What was the name of the place?
At Cipriani Wall Street.
At Cipriani Wall Street, where I left my overcoat.
Did you get it back?
I'm gonna go get it on my way.
I don't know how you gonna do that. We should go get it and send it to you.
All right, we're gonna see you later.
All right, thank you.
Got to go.
Yeah. Thanks, Lee.
All right, bless y'all.
All right.
Shout out to our brother, Attorney Lee Merritt. You know, it's always good to get his perspective and his expertise when we talk about these cases. You know, because I woke up a little down, you know, just looking at this Jordan Neely situation and Daniel Penny actually being acquitted of that. You know, it just was, it's like,
it's such a blow.
Like, so you trying to tell me that you could, just a regular citizen can just choke somebody, stop them from breathing, and there's no accountability because you thought they were going, like, I just don't understand. Well, why don't we have that kind of, carte blanche,
grace,
kind of grace?
Yeah,
I've never seen
if
a black person.
Think somebody might do something.
I have never I will understand that if somebody can tell me where a black person literally took someone's life, right, because they thought nobody touched them, did anything, because they thought that they were going to do something, and there was no accountability. I'm not saying that they should get the harshest charges. I'm not saying they do to go to jail forever, but there should be some level of accountability if you take a citizen's life. It just to me, I don't even understand it, but this is where we live at. This is the time we're in. Unfortunately, that's what happened. But once again, shout out to Lee Merritt.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Lee mentioned that the reports said that Jordan Neely said he was willing to kill somebody or die or something like that. He felt like something like that. He also said he was hungry. He also said he wanted food and water. He was hungry and he was tired. He also said those things. And it's funny that in this society, the one thing that he said around, wanting to kill himself, that got attention. Yeah. That got attention. There was a response, or wanted to die, or whatever, or kill, whatever he said. That got attention. And that was addressed by people, not just one person who choked him to death, but another person who helped to hold him down. right? Because remember, there was another guy there who's a Latino man who helped to hold him down. And then, of course, you have Jordan Neely who choked him to death.
No, you have Daniel Penny.
Excuse me, Daniel Penny who choked Jordan Neely to death. So that got addressed. But how we address the other things he said, which is what has him in the train station in the first place, which is what has led to his mental health deterioration and the deterioration of the mental health of people who even have houses. People who actually have somewhere to live are dealing with the same crisis of I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, and I'm tired. And that doesn't get addressed, but he certainly was murdered. In my judgment, it is not just a miscarriage of justice. It is an injustice that will only spread because these people, these white folks, are being emboldened to believe that anything they do to us is just okay. And, you know, I feel like the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, saying, you know, from the beginning, from day one, when the incident first happened, Eric was out of pocket.
Way out of pocket.
The mayor was completely out of pocket, immediately didn't even know what happened. But he has also criminalized people who are houseless. He has criminalized people and put the Scarlet's letter on the backs of some. I'm not 100% against the idea that we have to remove people from our streets who are living houseless, right? I believe that is true, that we have to have some way of bringing these people in. What I want to see is what are the resources that we intend to offer these individuals, especially it has to be a mental health weakening just to be houseless in general, to be a part of a unheard, respected, untreated, I don't even know all the things, just like they're like a people that don't exist. They're like invisible people. We see them, we step over them, we complain about them, but actually addressing the deep needs of people who are living in these situations or houseless individuals, I don't think anybody is doing the best job that we could do as a society to address that. So when we start talking about either arresting and or rounding up people who are homeless and putting them somewhere, and we're not saying, well, before we even round people up, we're going to have, 10 weekends of asking people to volunteer their services. We're going out, we're feeding, we're going to do mental health checks, we're going to talk, we're going to go out just like they have the rat czar who's out there working in communities, looking at what are the things that's causing the infestation in different communities in New York. We should be on a 10-week go out, work together, not just city agencies, but regular people who have psychiatric backgrounds, and they're doctors and therapists and people who can feed people and people who can do intervention programming. We should be out there trying to figure that out so that you don't have a Jordan Neely who comes on the train to say, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, and I'm ready to die, I'm ready to kill. We need to figure out how to get in front of that. And I just feel like, we don't do enough. This right here represents for me, something is wrong, right? Like Jordan Neely not receiving justice is just wrong.
Yeah, and Jordan Neely not receiving the help he needed,
right,
prior to even
which
losing
is the
his life,
injustice,
which is the real injustice, right? Like when you see someone like Jordan Neely, when I go on the train and I look at, like, you see the houseless individuals on there, and you see the levels of mental health. Like I sit on trains, like I told you, I was on the train one day and the guy was sitting across me, and he was obviously dealing with levels of mental health, and he was talking, he was aggressive, and I didn't grab the man and choke him to death, right? Because I realized that he was dealing with something, right? And I think there should be, mental health officials that work on the train.
I think they have something.
I have never seen
They have something. They do have something, but it's not like,
It's not.
I know it could
so,
just be better, and perhaps
so
it's
you tell
the
me
marketing.
They have mental health people that work
They
on the
do
trains.
have. They have.
Trains?
Yeah, they have programs where people are out there working one-to-one with police officers. They're on the trains. Even the mayor rides the train, and they try to talk to people. But like I said, the robust nature of what's needed, right? They say all the time, if you want to know a man's priorities, look at where he spends his money. If the police budget is more than all the other agencies combined, basically, I think education might be one of the biggest budgets. But when we've looked in the past, we're talking $6 billion, maybe even more than that now, that's going to policing, right? If you take a portion of that money for the militarized operation of policing, which we already know means that they show up for the most part after some shit has already happened in your community. If we take a portion of that money and really double down on and invest in mental health services and addressing the needs of, again, it's not just houseless individuals, because mental health is going on. There's people who are living in someone's home right now, and the other people are afraid. The other people in the house are being tortured because there's a son or a father or uncle or aunt or a sister or someone in the house who has a severe mental health issue. When they can get them to take their medicine, they're cool, but then other times they're not. I just told you the story about in my family, there's a man who was a chef for us during our family occasions in North Carolina. And you know, in fact, I just saw him in August, or September, or whatever, Labor Day. Dope man, amazing man, an older man, but he loved to have a good time, and he was the best. He the best on the grill, fried fish, whatever you want, you hire him. But he also was like a church going man. He has his wife, the two of them. I think they might have been choir members and deacons. Like they doing what they're supposed to be doing. Good members of society. Their family member, it may have been their grandson, but it also could be a nephew. Had some mental health issues and has been dealing with it his entire life. His family has attempted to get him the type of help that he needs. When he's off his medicine, he's in a worse situation. But when he's on his medicine, he's still problematic. This guy is like, you know, everybody knows it. Family, everybody knows about the things that he's done in the past. I think I heard that he even harmed a dog. And generally, when you have somebody that's harming animals, it is a indication that they need some like real serious help, right? So he's done those things. And just a few weeks ago, when his grandparents, uncle, let's just say grandparents for the point of the story, when they got home from church, he ambushed them and shot them to death. Two old people shot them to death, took their vehicle, went and their money, and went to a hotel and was kind of chilling in the same town. He didn't even run. This goes to show you his mindset. He didn't even run 100 miles away. He was in the vicinity, and they found him. So what I'm saying is he wasn't houseless. He lived somewhere.
But this mental health, yeah. Mental health is a big issue, man.
Yeah.
You know, my condolences and apologies go out to Jordan Neely's family. You know, it must be a hard day today to wake up and just see that no one will be held accountable for taking the life of your loved one. So
Terrible.
So that brings me to my I don't get it today. So there's been a civil lawsuit filed against Jay-Z that claims that he, along with Puff, allegedly violated a 13-year-old girl. And you know, and Jay's response was immediately like, this is not what you want to deal with. It like, we don't do stuff like that. We help children and we protect children here, and you're gonna find out. So he adamantly has denied. But my what I don't get, right? And I'm all for justice. I'm all for if a woman was violated.
If anybody was violated,
if you did something, you need to be held accountable. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. If these things are true, they need to be. But at this point for me, right, just looking at what's going on with Puff, there are hundreds of these lawsuits being filed, right? And the era that we're in right now, once the lawsuit is filed, 90% of the people run what you did anyway. Before Jay his name was even in anything, there was people wishing it. Oh yeah, I know Jay. He's not. What protects anybody from someone just filing the lawsuit, right? What is the process? What is after you decide that you filing a lawsuit that allegedly happened 24 years ago? Not saying it didn't, not saying it did, right? But once this gets into the social media, once it gets into the media, once it gets picked up, whether it's true, whether it's false, what happens to the individual? Like, how do us as males, especially males, protect ourselves against something like this? Like, what is the mechanism that we're supposed to use to protect ourselves if somebody decides, if you're a billionaire, someone decides that they're gonna file a civil suit against you? How do you protect yourself? What are you supposed to do? Like, what are you supposed to do? If you don't say nothing, right? If you decide, that you want it to go away, if you say that you trying to settle out of court, it's too much. That
right, and they
said
that
you're guilty.
And Lee Merritt just told us off camera that it would be called a nuisance. Like if there's a nuisance, fee, just pay him to leave me alone.
You can't do that because that means that you
admitting guilt to the media, to the online people.
Exactly. Now Puff is dealing with all this stuff already. So now you attach your name to that. So now you got to deal with it whether it's true or not. Like what are we supposed to do in this moment? I just don't know because I'm just confused because every day it's just a new this and it's a new that. What I don't get is, as a man in this society, in this social media society, how do you protect yourself against allegations, against a lawsuit, whether it's true, if it's not true and someone decides that you have money and they want to sue you, what do we do to protect ourselves as men? Like I don't understand. I don't get it because now, and I don't even see like the allegations, right? The allegations, not saying they're false, but there's nothing to completely tie anything to anything. If you happen to be in a party that I was 15 years ago, and they could prove that you was in a party, then now they could make an allegation that said I could have never even touched you. I probably don't even know who you are. Right? And most of these lawyers will take the case, especially because what's going on with, Puff right now. And if you attach anything to Puff right now, everybody assumes that it's true. So how are people supposed to protect themselves in this moment?
Well, here I want to say that first off, it's not only just, we have to really zoom ourselves out. And no, I'm not saying Bill Cosby was buying NBC. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that it's more than just people with allegations because you have money. Because you can have no money. And if it has been decided that you are either a problem or that it is time to shut you down, there can be allegations and a concerted effort to destroy your reputation. So let's just make sure we put that on the wall so that it's not just about individual people, but there is an actual culture of attempting to destroy not just men, but women also, but just different ways in which they come at us. They call you could be one day racist or anti-Semitic or whatever, and then that has the ability to ruin your reputation. Then on the other side, on the other side, violations. So there's so many, stealing money from an organization. There's so many things that can come at different individuals who are seen to be either too powerful or too problematic or too loud or too whatever. So that's one thing. On the other hand, though, there are real victims out here and there has been a culture that's existed of people being able to get away with violating young people and women and even men, which, by the way, that's the untold story. that there are many men who've been violated, and that never gets dealt with because of, again, a culture of keep it to yourself, don't talk about it, family business, or a man should never show the weakness or vulnerability of these things happening to him. So you have a lot of that, and that culture exists. And I think what we're seeing right now is an attempt to right side it, right? And it puts a lot of people in the crosshairs. What I mean by that is, as soon as you say, you, my son, and you say that today, someone from production touched you the wrong way and you feel uncomfortable, because people are so ready to fight against these things, this norm that has let folks just be, your story never gets told or you not believed. Everybody's like, yep, it happened, because we're in the process of like fighting against an old way of existing that has to change. Now,
but what I hear what you're saying, but you don't think that this becomes even more dangerous?
Well, I'm not saying that it's not dangerous.
It's like
what I'm just trying to say.
Are we going to replace one thing that we figure
absolutely
is wrong with something that's
absolutely
equally as wrong and harmful?
And I agree with you 100%. And I'm not saying that it's right. I'm saying that people need to understand the moment that we're in and why so many people immediately jump to like, yeah, because we're so used to this culture existing where you can't even tell your story because you get looked at crazy about why you would even try to disrupt the life of somebody who's a public figure. And so you got so many people, and then you got your third layer, which is just haters that just love, like they have been trying their best to bring Jay-Z into this situation or find something on him that makes him to be this big bad wolf. I hear it all the time. People say to me, oh yeah, y'all was working with Rock Nation. I mean, Tory Lane's father, Rock Nation did it. Everybody, Rock Nation, Jay, and I think a part of it is that Jay and Beyonce don't speak much to anybody about anything. And so that makes people upset too, because they want you to put yourself in the media all the time so they could beat up on you, gas you up, then drag you down. Like, this is what they want to do. And when you don't talk much or you don't make yourself vulnerable in that way, people be grabbing at straws looking for anything. So anytime somebody says Jay did it, you're going to have all these people who automatically jump on it. And that just goes along with the territory. And it happens to you on a different level. I see it all the time. As soon as you say good morning on your social media and they go to work. Oh, your cab driver and what else? They all kind of things. Where's the money from BLM? Whatever, they do it all the time. So there is a culture out there of two things. People who really want to see victims get the support that they deserve. And then people who are just haters and they just have nothing else to do with their time except to try to tear other people down. But then there's this other piece when you talk about the protections. And see, Jay is in a place where they're going to fight until the last day. If you never heard him speak, you're going to hear him speak now, because he's not about to let people play with his name at all. And I hope that what is being said, I hope that half of the stuff, and more than half, if I hope that 90% of the things that they're saying about Puff is not true, that it's unfounded or whatever. I really pray and hope that, because it's hard when you know these people and you sit with them, you love them, and you looking at them and it's like, damn, you could have done this? It's crazy. So I hope that these things are not true, but at the same time, they have the resources to fight. They have the resources to fight. They have the resources to have the lawyers to go back and forth, and they are going to. And we know for sure that Jay is going to be on 10 fighting against allegations from 24 years ago that he did something to a 13-year-old child. Other people don't have the same resources. Mm-hmm. And that it does mean, it means that, number one,
it puts you at a disadvantage.
It puts you at a disadvantage, but it also means, in my judgment, that you have to be very careful where you are, who you're with, and what you're engaged in. You have to be very careful because, like you said, just being in the room, what happened on Love and Hip Hop? The girl said, oh, you bought a drink for me at the bar, Tim and DC's. And it's like, what the hell are you talking about? All of this ruckus has been caused over, I bought a drink from you and the thing. So when you go to the bar, what do you do?
Yeah.
Right? But the assumption or what was built out, what played out in that moment is as if when he went to the bar and bought the drink, he was also in there doing something else that's inappropriate. And so that's what, to your point, this is why Denzel Washington said certain time of night, it's time for you to go home. Because once the party energy shifts, if you're there, you on the camera, nowadays, you don't even, there doesn't even have to be proof that you did the thing. They just need to prove you was in the room. So I would say that you have to be very mindful of who you are with, where you are, who's around, because you never know when just being in a certain space can have you wrapped up in something that has absolutely nothing to do with you. So we'll see. I mean, we never want to be on this show or in our lives those to say what someone did or didn't do. I wasn't there 24 years ago to see whether or not a violation happened or not. I was not there. What I do know is that in my time of being around and dealing very closely with the culture of like how Jay-Z operates, just seeing him, being around him, it is very difficult for me to believe that he did something to abuse a child. That's like, it's stretching far. And so I'm with him. You gonna have to prove this, and that's it.
Yeah, it's just disheartening. Like every day, just keep on hearing, and it's more disheartening just to see that people immediately just convict you.
Yeah,
like you go to these pages and you look on and you be like, damn, it's hundreds of people just like, yeah, get them, take them down. They need to go do this, and this is like, how did we get to a culture where we celebrate the demise of everything? Like we celebrated these people, like Jay-Z said it himself. He said they good night you with the same knife that they knight you, the sword that they knight you with. So it's like they build you up. They watch you come from the bottom. They want to see you become successful, and they be like, yeah, they pattern their life after you, and they like, yo, he did this and he did this, and then they can't wait to see you fall. And it's like it's crazy. It's like it's a real harsh reality that we in times where that's celebrated, with the people who want to see you fall from grace have the biggest voices. Like they have the loudest voice. They got the biggest megaphones. You go on Instagram, you go on YouTube, and they can't wait. It's millions of people. They got millions of followers, and they just talking about how they can't wait to see you go down, and they know you did this, and they don't know shit. And they got millions of people that's following them that's feeding off that energy. They tune in every day to just hear the negativity about you and hear how something's wrong about you and how you did something wrong. That shit is so weird to me because I've never been that type of individual. I don't want to see nobody lose. I don't want to see anybody, fall. I don't want to do that. So knowing that there's a world, not even just there's a world full of people that thrive off that shit.
That's true.
It's unbelievable to me.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, 100%. 100%. Trust me, as you know, I've been there. I've dealt with it, and it is very, 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 very. And you get thrown into stuff that ain't even about you again. Because I've never seen the bank account for BLM. I never been to the BLM office.
Me neither.
I never stayed in the houses that they speak of. I don't know anything about the business of BLM except what I have been told by asking individuals who do know. And, particularly the three sisters who led that work, Patrice, Opal, and Alicia, other than, what information I was able to gather from them, I ain't never been there. But I get accused and positioned with that all the time.
Even when you look at that situation, right? Even when you're accused of, and once again, I don't know anything. But right?
We do know some stuff. And we know that multiple allegations against them are false.
That's what I'm saying. I know that because I know that, but as far as the details of when they was there and who was there and where money, those are things that I learned and I did research on, but I wasn't personally there to be able to speak on behalf of it, right? But what I know is this, right? I know we have a sitting president that's been convicted of crimes that millions of people are telling you is bullshit, right? And I also know that Black Lives Matter has never been charged with a crime, but everybody is telling you that they did something.
Not everybody, but millions of people.
Millions of people are telling you that they did something. They never been charged with nothing, never convicted of nothing, and people are telling you that they the worst people in the world. But we got a president that's been charged, convicted, settled out of court, paid money, all type of shit, and they tell you it's all bullshit.
That's funny.
Hey, go figure, man. That brings us to the end of another episode of TMI. We appreciate y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for always following us. If you have any guests you want to see, if you have any topics, please hit us up on Instagram, TMI_show. Follow us and subscribe to our YouTube channel, TMI Show PC. Please follow. We have exclusives. We have premieres every Sunday right now, but we're going to probably change them to a different day. But right now, they're every Sunday. So we want you to tune in to the video version of TMI on YouTube, TMI Show PC.
Why
we love you.
Are you doing?
Because I am very adamant about this right This is my adamant. So good. I love y'all. Make sure that y'all tune in. Continue to follow us. I'm not going to always be right. Tamika D. Mallory is not going to always be wrong, but we will both always, and I mean always, be authentic.
Peace.
Salute.